Well, well, it's that time. Time to talk about the defending champions of the European Championships, the holders, Portugal. Certainly a talented side. It's wild seeing Portugal come into a competition like this considered one of the favorites, but if you go through the journalist picks to win it all, there's an article on UEFA's website. All of the picks are France, Belgium, and England. Bar the Portuguese journalist who backs Portugal, of course. So for this one, I won't be just talking to myself in an empty room, I'll be speaking in an empty room with Aaron from the Football Content Awards nominated blog Próxima Jornada. Yes, all things Portuguese football, but in English, so do be sure to check out his Twitter, linked below, so you can stay up to date on news, the various talents emerging from Portugal, and so much more. It's about time we linked up, man, so enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the other side. Portugal certainly, by the way, this is all going to be edited. I'll put in all your credentials and intros to you and links and everything at the beginning. Don't worry.
That's why I know your product, Adrian. I know your product.
That's why I'm not saying like, everybody, here's Aaron. Okay, so Portugal certainly has a more talented side than they did in 2016. You know, I think I tweeted last night actually that I was watching the Euro 2016 final and seeing names like João Mario, who, I mean, to be fair to him at the time, was playing quite well. Adrian Silva, people like that, seeing them in that midfield was a little bit jarring. Andre Gomes, who was really struggling at that time, he's found himself a bit at Everton, as you would know. But despite the talent now, Portugal's play can be a little bit laborious at times. It's not as simple as more talent equals a better product on the pitch. So why do you think that is? Is there something failing at times?
To be honest, I think it's a balancing act with Portugal, and because sometimes we watch them and they're absolutely lightning, electric. I mean, I always go back to the game against Croatia in the Nations League, the 4-1 I think it was, and it was like everything had come together. I don't think Ronaldo played that game either, but it was fluid and it was electric, and I'm not suggesting that he's the problem either, because I saw that discussion a lot online as well, to be fair. But then at the same time, you know, how do you leave out a guy like Ronaldo? So I imagine we'll come to that. But the issue is when you have so much talent, it's getting the best out of it. Anderson, obviously, he likes to maybe play in a more pragmatic style at times. 2016, we owe, you know, his work with that squad for delivering Portugal's first ever title. Due to the way that he went through the games, you know, Portugal at times didn't play the most, you know, fluid stuff, but he got the job done. Now he's got, as you say, a much more talented squad, but it's trying to make that tick. It's how do you get all these players into one team? A big discussion that I'm seeing sort of online is regarding Andre Silva. You know, he's just finished with more goals than Erling Haaland in the Bundesliga. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo still bagging goals for fun in Italy, even though the season hasn't been sort of the best. And then there's the likes of Diogo Jota, who was on fire for Liverpool before his injury. So much talent. Bernardo Silva, there's so many players that you've got to try and fit into an 11. But at the same time, you've got to balance it out. There's got to be something there in the midfield, because if you're coming up against sides like France and like Germany, it's that balancing act. And a lot of people do get frustrated at times that Portugal don't play this all-out electric football all the time.
That performance against Croatia sort of felt like the apex of this current generation, you know, and that you brought it up. So let's talk a little bit about the Ronaldo discussion, because I have seen that, and I do sort of fall into that camp at times where, you know, you hate to say it, but sometimes there has been quite a few matches. I believe the entire first Nations League iteration, they played without Ronaldo in the group stage, I believe. And then he only joined for the Final Four. And Portugal was great. They topped a group with Poland and Italy. That match against Croatia, as you mentioned. So it's one of those things where I feel for Fernando Santos, because he can't be that guy who doesn't start Ronaldo and then Portugal end up losing. Everyone's going to hang him for it. So what do you think about that? Do you think that Portugal sort of defaults into this get the ball to Ronaldo type thing when he's on the pitch, or what's happening here?
I think at times Portugal have been guilty of that. But in my personal opinion, I actually think that Portugal have been trying, with still having Ronaldo on the pitch, trying to sort of move away from that. So if you take last night's game, for an example, Ronaldo's in the box, he's on the left-hand side. Rather than trying to go to him straight away, they played a nice incisive pass. got the ball out wide, pulled it back for Bruno, who provided a really good finish. And that was an example of Portugal playing some good football with Ronaldo on the pitch. Just because he's there, it doesn't mean that you have to go to him. As you say, default is the perfect word each time. Ronaldo, because it doesn't have to be like that. I think sometimes the weight of having him on the pitch on some of the other players can sometimes get to them, because if they've got 2 or 3 options when they look up, they might not always go for the best option. They might go for the most obvious option. And again, the frustration that's sort of leveled towards him, both to Santos and to Ronaldo, it's neither of their fault. It's not his fault that he's being selected for the matches. He scores goals. That's what he does. We saw it again yesterday. I do think at times it can hinder Portugal sometimes, but then at the same time, he's bailed out as you say, Adrian. He's bailed Portugal out so many times, and he's been the man to go to. It's a conundrum. I can't solve it, and that's why I'm not the manager of Seleção. So
yeah, you nor me. Yeah, I think ultimately, whether Ronaldo's on the pitch or not, I expect big things from Portugal, and I expect good things from the attack of Portugal. And so, Aaron, let's talk about the 26-man squad a little bit, because there were some inclusions and exclusions that had some chatter around them. For example, the inclusion of Rafa and Gonçalo Guedes after their seasons that they had. They sort of felt just like, Santos was bringing guys that he knows rather than give opportunities to others, which might not be fair to say, because he did bring along a few of the Sporting guys that, hadn't had a chance prior to this. So do you think that there was anyone that had the right to feel hard done by for not making this squad?
Not particularly, to be honest, because in the case of, as you say there, Gonçalo Guedes, if someone like Pedro Neto is fit, I think he goes. It's the whole situation with him reminded me a lot of Bernardo Silva before 2016. That injury, and sort of coming into form and being a little bit of an unknown quantity. Like, he can do some unpredictable things. He might bring a little bit of creativity off the bench. He's actually what Portugal lack a little bit, to be honest, because a lot of their creative players, they're not the type of player who sort of like Ronaldo a little bit in like 2004. That's what Pedro Neto reminds me a little bit of, is that sort of fearlessness to go one way, go the other. And yeah, you might lose the ball 2 or 3 times, but the 4th time you'll beat your man and put a cross in. And it's that sort of attacking intent, always thinking about going forward, where the likes of the creative types, even the likes of like Pedro Gonçalves, he's not really that type of player. Bernardo Silva's not that type of player. He likes to drop into midfield. I actually think his best position is in a midfield 3. When he's played there for Man City, he's been amazing. Having that sort of those qualities, I think, are a little bit wasted when he's out wide. And then I think, Rafa Silva is exactly the same in terms of, you look at his inclusion and you think, but then at the same time, is Santos just picking someone who offers something a little bit different, who will go down the byline and try and beat his man and put a cross in? It's the same with Guedes as well. He had a little bit of an upturn in form towards the end of the season for Valencia, but a little bit lucky to be included in the squad, of course. But when I look at that squad, I think everyone in there is in there for a reason. No one's in there out of, we'll bring them just because.
Who do you think has the potential to be sort of the surprise breakout player for Portugal at this tournament? Because, with the success that Sporting had with Ruben Amorim, a few players warranted a call-up, and they got them as well. Do you think it'll be one of those guys or someone else?
I'm really, really excited to see the role Nuno Mendes plays at this tournament, because a lot's being made of Rafael Guerreiro, where he's going to play. He's played in midfield for Dortmund, and he's played a little bit higher up the pitch as a wing-back on occasions. He's played on both sides. But I think if Nuno Mendes can manage to get into the side, like last night, I didn't think he had a 10 out of 10 unbelievable game. I just thought he was really solid going forward and defensively. Obviously, you talk about the opposition, they didn't really, trouble him too much. How he fared against France or Germany or even Hungary in a tournament where the feeling is just so different. One mistake can cost you. But and I think I'd like to see João Palhinha be given a bit more game time, just some game time, to be honest, because he was Sporting's best player in last season. I think a lot was obviously made of Pedro Gonçalves and Sebastian Coates and players like that. But when Palhinha didn't play, you saw a significant drop off in their performances, and I think he was key to everything good. Everything went through him. Other replacements and stuff come in and do a good job, but He was the key man for me. I'm gonna go with another Sporting player there, is Pedro Gonçalves, because I've mentioned him a couple of times. Obviously not an out and out sort of winger, and he doesn't really drop too far deep anymore. Not as much as he used to when he played for Millicao. More of like an inside forward. Be interesting to see how he will play. It's sort of in like that João Felix role, the way when he sort of plays off the striker. It's difficult because the European Championships are not really a time that you can experiment unless you've got your position in the group sort of sewn up and in the bag, and then it's time to sort of rest players.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Cristiano Ronaldo did not start the first game in Euro 2004 against Greece, but he did come on and score against them. And then from then on, I believe he started. I'm not sure. So, hey, maybe we'll see another sort of situation like that for one of the young guys. Hopefully.
Started every game after that. And I feel like that's why I get a little bit frustrated over the Pedro Neto stuff, because I think obviously different players and he's not on that level yet, but and no, he may never will be. I mean, Ronaldo's level is a level above. But it would have been like to see someone just so hungry and aggressive and young and fearless. I think players get a little bit older and they actually realise the occasion that they're in.
They almost become too aware of themselves. But let's take a look at, where do you think that there might be a potential weakness in the Portuguese side? Because as we've gone over, it's a very, very strong, across the 26, it's a very strong Portuguese side. But where would you say a potential weakness could be in here?
I think getting the balance right in midfield is massive, because I think if you, and I know you'll have watched it as well, like the game against Spain the other day, trying to get a foothold in that midfield and just couldn't. You're just getting absolutely played off the park. If you lose the midfield, you're done for. So he needs to make sure that he picks a midfield that's balanced, that's defensively sound, but yet when in transition is good enough to start attacks. And that's why I think someone like João Palhinha, because I think he plays both sides of the coin very well, both defensively and offensively. Renato Sanchez is if he can, he's gone back a little bit to that Euro 2016 form recently for Lille. And when he's on the ball, I think he's such a proficient ball carrier, and he's got that little bit of fearlessness about him. Bruno Fernandes, I said this yesterday on Twitter, a lot of comments about his performances in a Seleção jersey, and I think sometimes he does try and take the ball and sort of do everything, which is because as a player that's what he's done since he arrived at Sporting. So United were in a position where they were really faltering. He grabbed that team by the scruff of the neck and took them into Europe, and it was him that was, and it's, people online, they say like he's playing hero ball, and like it's funny to an extent, but you think at times he is maybe trying to do too much. And I've always said I back him 100%, and I back the fact that sometimes he will give the ball away. You know why? Because he's trying to play eye the needle passes. He's trying to thread things. He's trying to get things going. I'd rather he had 78% possession than had 92% possession, but all he did was go back to Pepe Rubidias. But I think, again, getting the balance right, you've got to know when and where to lose is the right place to lose the ball. I think the midfield is a big one. Santos in the last couple of games has played that double pivot, which I like, because I think that double pivot gives you a little bit of control. And at the same time gives you an out ball. Yeah, and it gave the freedom to the fullbacks to go forward as well, knowing that they'd have someone there to cover. I also in that second half, I didn't mind seeing Bruno really pushing far out to the left side either. I thought that we looked pretty dangerous with him moving out to that side. Finally, let's wrap it up with, how do you see this very difficult group going? I mean, our record against Germany is quite poor. Even at the U21 level, apparently. France got the better of us recently. Hungary is playing at home in front of a 100% capacity crowd. So what do you think? How do you see this going? Do you want the supporter verdict or the journalist verdict? Let's have the journalist one to start, because I think I know where the supporter one's going. It's important. Well, in fact, it's more than important. It's imperative that Portugal start off with a win. You need to start off with 3 points. Don't give yourself a 2004 situation where you start off against the weakest team in the group, arguably lose, and then in 2004 then have to go and beat Spain in this nail-biter of a game. I think if you can get a good result against Hungary, which I think Portugal will, I think Portugal will start off the group with 3 points, And then those 2 games, who knows how they're going to go, Adrian. I think it depends what Portugal turn up, because defensively, I've got no issues with Portugal being and taking the mantle of sort of the underdog. People say, we're European champions, we're defending the crown, we should go with this gung-ho approach. But you think, well, with Fernando Santos in charge, that's not how it's going to work, so you're going to have to get used to it, especially in the game against France. You know, be humbled a little bit in terms of your approach. I think, okay, might not have all the ball all the time, but defensively, stay switched on. The game, I don't think it was maybe the most recent game where Mbappe and Pep, he had an amazing game against them, dealt with them so well. Yep. That's a frightening prospect, some of the attacking, and then obviously they've got Karim Benzema this time as well. And I think that'll be the game that frightens me a lot more than the Germany game does. But then, as you say, how people ask me, how do you think Portugal are going to get on? Literally couldn't tell you. But what I can say is, I think if Portugal get out the group, we were speaking a little bit off air before, talking about the chances of a winner of Euro 2020 coming from this group are very high, because you've got 3 really, really strong teams in there. And I think if you can get past that sort of fear factor of playing against France, you play them in the group, you get a good result. Imagine what that'll do for confidence. And then the supportive view is that we'll win every single game. But yeah, I think the pessimistic Portuguese supporter in me is every game will be difficult, but I do think it is get out the group stages, and you think how far you want to go is completely up to the team. Constantly have difficult groups. Well, we'll see.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Like when I saw what our group was, I didn't actually watch the draw live. When I saw what the group was, I was like, yeah, okay. Well, obviously, that was going to be who we got drawn up against. But it's a difficult one, because like you said, it depends on which Portugal shows up, and it's also depends on which Germany shows up, because it could be this same 2018 World Cup Germany. But I think that and I don't want to rely on going through in third once again, but I think that a win against Hungary and a draw against either Germany or France could potentially be enough to go through as one of the best third place teams. Then from there, if you're it's kind of nice being in the third place spot for the draw. So if you go first and second, you could play either England or Croatia, unless Scotland or Czech Republic do a madness in their group. So yeah, we'll see. Group F may be hard to predict, but it will certainly be a ton of fun to watch. That I can say for sure. Be sure to show some love to Aaron, who's doing great things. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll see you later for a watch along today. Italy versus Turkey. It should be fun. Love ya.